There comes a time in your life when you've got to stop waiting for the applause, stop craving the validation, and stop asking for permission to grow. Because the truth is, they don't see what God put in you. They don't understand the assignment. They don't hear the whispers God speaks over your life in the midnight hour. You've been spending so much time trying to fix, impress, or prove yourself to people who were never assigned to carry your vision. But God says, this is the season where you go silent and go strong. See, the enemy wants you distracted, scrolling, comparing, doubting, performing. But God is calling you into alignment. He's saying, daughter, son, if you would just focus on what I placed inside of you, you wouldn't need to convince a soul. Your growth would speak. Your peace would preach. Your progress would prophesy. This next chapter isn't about showing them. It's about becoming you, not the watered down, people-pleasing version of you. No. The healed, whole, unapologetically aligned you. So I came to tell somebody today, it's time. Time to break up with distractions. Time to stop shrinking to fit places you've outgrown. Time to focus on what God is building in you. Because when you do, you won't have to say a word. Your transformation will shock the world. There is a season in your life where God will deliberately quiet the world around you, not to punish you, but to position you. It feels like people are pulling away. The phone isn't ringing like it used to. The invitations stop coming. The support you thought you had turns to silence. And while your heart wants to call it rejection, God is whispering, it's redirection. Because sometimes God has to mute the noise so you can hear the truth. Not the version the world is yelling at you, but the version heaven has always known about you. You see, when there's too much noise, you start second guessing yourself. You start moving based on applause instead of assignment. You start editing your purpose to please people who only saw fragments of your identity. And when that happens, your vision becomes blurred. You're no longer creating from a place of clarity. You're reacting from a place of confusion. But God didn't give you a purpose for you to get lost trying to please crowd. He gave you a vision that needs focus, not approval. There's something sacred about stillness. Something holy about learning to be comfortable in quiet seasons. The world will tell you you're being forgotten, overlooked, left behind, but that's only because they don't understand the beauty of divine isolation. God does his best work in silence. The womb is silent. The cocoon is silent. And yet transformation was happening. Destiny was being shaped. A foundation was being laid. You're not being forgotten. You're being fortified. When you begin to silence the noise, external and internal, you start to see things clearly. You stop measuring your success by someone else's timeline. You stop letting fear masquerade as wisdom. You stop outsourcing your worth to people who don't even value themselves. That's when your vision starts to strengthen, not just your dream, but your ability to carry it, your mental vision, your emotional vision, your spiritual vision. Because purpose isn't just about having a calling, it's about having the capacity to walk in it without breaking every time the enemy shows up. And let's be real, sometimes the loudest noise isn't even from other people, it's from within. It's that inner critic, that voice of trauma, that echo of past failure that keeps reminding you of who you used to be. It tries to drown out your growth. It mocks your momentum. But the moment you start replacing that voice with truth, something breaks, something shifts. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your spirit. You stop participating in cycles that keep you small. You start choosing alignment over attention. And the vision God gave you starts coming into focus. You realize you don't need the crowd. You don't need to be seen to be stable. You don't need constant feedback to keep moving forward. You just need to know that heaven is backing you. You just need to remember that what God whispered in your spirit is more powerful than what the enemy is shouting from the sidelines. You don't build vision in public, you build it in prayer. in discipline, in devotion, in obedience. That's the soil where purpose takes root, and the deeper the root, the higher the reach. Strengthening your vision is not glamorous. It's not always shareable. It looks like waking up early to work on your goals when nobody is watching. It looks like praying when you feel numb. It looks like walking away from what's familiar because it no longer fits where you're going. It looks like forgiving people who will never apologize. It looks like confronting your own patterns and being honest about what's holding you back. This isn't easy. But it's holy, it's sacred, because it's in those private victories that God prepares you for the public ones. And as you begin to center yourself and let the noise fall away, you become more aware of how much you've been carrying that never belonged to you. The expectations, the labels, the guilt, the trauma, the pressure to perform. And layer by layer, you start peeling it off, not to impress anyone, not to post about it, but because you finally understand that the version of you that's required for your next level can't carry the baggage of your last one. That version needs clarity. That version needs healing. That version needs vision. Vision doesn't just guide your future, it protects your peace. When your vision is clear, you stop engaging in drama that distracts you. You stop tolerating relationships that dim your light. You stop agreeing with lies about your worth. You stop giving people permission to access your spirit without discernment. When you know where you're going, you become less reactive and more intentional. You stop moving emotionally and start moving prophetically. That's the difference between wandering and walking in purpose. This season is about silencing every voice that doesn't sound like your future. It's about turning down the volume on opinions, assumptions, and fears and tuning into what God is saying, because what He speaks over your life will never return void. What He declares will never be canceled by human limitation. When your vision is anchored in Him, you don't chase clarity from the world, you receive it from heaven. And when God gives you vision, He gives you the strength to carry it, even when no one else claps for it. You've spent too much time letting noise confuse your calling, too much time allowing distractions to dilute your destiny. But this is your call to refocus, to realign, to recommit to the original vision. Not the version that's been compromised by fear or rushed by comparison, but the one that was birthed in prayer, the one that made your spirit leap, the one you were scared to tell anyone about because it felt too big for your current reality. That's the vision God wants to breathe life back into. But it won't happen in chaos. It won't happen when your eyes are on everybody else's lane. It happens in stillness, in surrender, in obedience. Because when the noise is gone and it's just you and God, something powerful happens. You stop striving and start becoming. You stop questioning and start trusting. You stop explaining and start evolving. And in that space, in that sacred silence, your vision strengthens. Not because you tried harder, but because you trusted deeper. There's a kind of strength that's not born on stages, not developed under spotlights, not sharpened through applause. It's the strength that grows in the dark behind closed doors when nobody's watching and nobody's clapping. It's the kind of strength that comes from doing the work within yourself, the real, raw, gritty work of healing. The kind of healing that doesn't make headlines but makes you whole. Because public power is only sustainable when it's backed by private healing. What good is a platform if your soul is fractured? What good is influence if your heart is infected with unhealed wounds? God will often take you through private seasons of isolation, not to punish you, but to prepare you, because He knows if you step into visibility without first confronting the trauma you buried, the stage will only magnify the cracks. The blessing will become heavy. The opportunity will trigger your insecurity. The exposure will amplify your pain. But when you heal in private, when you let God touch the places you keep hidden from the world, you don't just walk into your purpose. You carry it with authority. You walk into rooms knowing your worth isn't tied to who sees you, but to who healed you. There's something sacred about letting God deal with the parts of you that are still bleeding, the resentment you've been masking with a smile, the fear you've been hiding behind productivity, the shame you've been dressing up as perfectionism. He wants to go beneath the surface, not for your humiliation, but for your liberation. Because the version of you that can truly shock the world isn't the version that's pretending to have it all together. It's the version that let God put them back together in secret. Sometimes we think healing means forgetting, but healing is remembering without the pain. It's being able to tell your story without your voice shaking. It's confronting the memory without being swallowed by it. Healing doesn't erase what happened. It reclaims your power from what happened. And you can't fake that kind of healing. You can fake confidence. You can fake charisma, you can fake success, but you cannot fake wholeness. Wholeness has a sound, wholeness has a weight, wholeness has a stillness to it that doesn't need to compete, compare, or control. It just is. And the thing is, the world is attracted to people who are healed. They don't even know why. But there's a peace around them, a stability, a light. Because healed people move differently. Healed people speak differently. Healed people don't waste time proving points. They carry presence. But you can't walk in that presence if you're still defining yourself by what broke you. That's why healing is the real glow up. It's not the new outfit, the job title, the followers. It's the internal shift that says, I no longer belong to the pain that tried to define me. You learn things in healing that no book can teach. You learn how to sit with yourself, how to hear your own thoughts without running, how to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You learn how to mother the little girl inside of you who didn't know how to process the abandonment, how to speak life over the little boy who never got affirmation. You start to unlearn the lies you picked up in survival mode. Lies that told you you had to perform to be loved. Lies that said your voice didn't matter. Lies that taught you to abandon yourself just to belong. And little by little, day by day, God begins to rebuild you, piece by piece, layer by layer, not as the world builds, but with patience, with precision, and with purpose. He begins to strip away the titles you hid behind, the relationships you clung to, the false identities you wore like armor. And he begins to reveal who you really are, the you that's not defined by pain, but by promise. The you that doesn't flinch at rejection anymore. The you that no longer seeks validation because you already know you're chosen. The you that doesn't shrink to keep others comfortable. Healing in private is messy, it's uncomfortable, it's humbling. It means facing the mirror and being honest. It means admitting you're not okay while still trusting that you will be. It means grieving the version of you that had to survive by being quiet, by people pleasing, by numbing. It means letting go of coping mechanisms that used to feel like comfort. And it means showing up for yourself even when nobody else does. That's the kind of healing that becomes power, not the kind that posts about it, the kind that walks in it. And the beautiful thing about healing in private is that nobody gets to interfere with what God is doing. There's no performance, no pressure, no pretense, just you and him. That's where the real power is birthed, in the unseen, in the wilderness, in the silence. That's where God trains you to stand in storms that used to shake you. That's where you learn that being hidden doesn't mean being forgotten. It means being protected. Because when you heal in private, your identity is no longer fragile. You don't need applause to feel anointed. You don't need attention to feel alive. You don't need to constantly explain yourself to people who don't even understand themselves. You stop moving from desperation and start moving from discernment. You stop fighting battles that aren't yours because you're not trying to prove anything. You've already won the war within. And when you win within, nothing external can shake what's internal. You can be in a room full of people who once overlooked you and still smile because you no longer need their acceptance. You can serve in silence without resentment because your reward is in the obedience. You can cheer others on without envy because you know your lane is secure. That's the kind of posture healing produces. It's not just emotional, it's spiritual. You don't just walk different, you see different. You start seeing situations through grace. You start interpreting delays not as denial, but as divine timing. You start recognizing triggers as invitations to go deeper, not reasons to shut down. So when your public moment comes, when the door opens, when the opportunity presents itself, when the spotlight finds you, you won't be shaken, you won't be swayed, you won't sabotage it because you're not stepping into it from a place of lack. You're stepping into it from a place of overflow, from a place of wholeness. You'll be able to lead without crumbling. You'll be able to lead without bleeding. You'll be able to rise without losing your soul. Because you allowed God to build the foundation in private, in secret, in silence. Discipline isn't flashy, it doesn't trend, it doesn't get praised in the moment, but it's the quiet force behind every great transformation. Discipline is the thing that separates wishful thinking from supernatural breakthrough. It's not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. It's about showing up when nobody claps, when the feelings fade, when motivation dries up, because the truth is, emotions may spark a moment, but discipline sustains the mission. You can't always feel your way into purpose, but you can discipline your way there. You can train your spirit to obey when your flesh is tired, discouraged, or distracted. We live in a world that celebrates results, but rarely honors the process. Everyone wants to see the glow up, the miracle, the platform, but they forget the mornings that started before the sun came up, the sacrifices made in silence, the choices to say no when yes would have been easier, the moments of obedience that nobody saw but heaven recorded. Discipline isn't loud, but it's loyal. It shows up daily, digging trenches of character that can carry your call. Because charisma might get you through a door, but it's discipline that will keep you from walking back out of it broken. There's a kind of discipline that grows out of your desperation to never go back to who you used to be. It's not about proving something to others. It's about protecting the healing God already did in you. You start guarding your time, your mind, your boundaries, your routines, not because you're trying to be rigid, but because you've seen what happens when you get too loose, when you let distractions in, when you entertain what you've been delivered from, when you choose comfort over calling. Discipline becomes the line in the sand between old cycles and new seasons. And the powerful thing is you don't need a crowd to practice discipline. You don't need the perfect environment. You just need a decision, a made-up mind, a heart that says, I may not be where I want to be, but I'm not going back. I may not feel it today, but I trust the fruit will come if I just keep watering the seed. Because that's what discipline is, daily obedience to what you believe God said, even when your surroundings haven't caught up yet, even when you're still sowing in tears, even when the breakthrough hasn't come, even when it looks small, insignificant, invisible. Discipline trains you to think long-term in a short-term world. It teaches you to build legacy, not just momentum. Anybody can start, anybody can post about it, talk about it, dream about it. But it's the disciplined ones who finish, who endure, who stay faithful when everything around them says quit. And this kind of discipline, spirit-led, purpose-driven discipline, it's spiritual warfare. Because every time you show up in obedience, you cancel the lie that says you're lazy, inconsistent, or not enough. You war against the generational curses that tried to make you settle. You disrupt every pattern the enemy thought would stop you. There are some blessings you won't pray your way into. You'll discipline your way into them. You'll have to stretch when you want to shrink. You'll have to study when you want to scroll. You'll have to sow when you want to spend. You'll have to walk away when you want to stay comfortable. You'll have to lead when you'd rather stay hidden. But when you do, something shifts. Heaven starts backing. your effort. Grace starts multiplying your routine. And suddenly, what looked like just another ordinary day of discipline becomes a launching pad for divine acceleration. Discipline isn't just about habits, it's about honor. Honoring the call, honoring the body God gave you, honoring the vision He placed inside of you, honoring the future you're building even when the present feels uncertain. When you live with discipline, you start to value your time differently. You stop giving energy to things that drain you. You stop entertaining people who disrupt your peace. You start planning like someone who knows destiny is real and time is expensive. You start moving like someone who expects God to show up, and so you prepare your life accordingly. And let's be real, discipline doesn't always feel spiritual. Sometimes it feels like repeating the same workout. Saying no to the wrong text, waking up before the house is quiet, putting your phone on do not disturb so your spirit can get still, making your bed even when your thoughts feel messy, but in doing so, you are forming habits that build spiritual muscle. You're creating space for God to move. You're telling your soul we're going somewhere. We're not staying stuck. We're not living in survival mode anymore. And that alignment creates momentum that discipline fuels every day. Discipline is the voice that says, I don't need to see results to keep going. I trust what I'm building. It's the posture that says, God, I may not feel qualified, but I'm going to prepare like I am. It's the mentality that says, this time, I'm not just starting strong, I'm going to finish better. And when you start living like that, when your actions begin to echo your anointing, your life starts preaching louder than your words ever could. People will wonder how you did it, how you got that peace, that posture, that confidence. And the answer won't be a quick fix or a viral secret. It'll be the fruit of unseen discipline. People respect the results, but rarely respect the routine. They'll admire your glow without knowing the oil it cost. But you'll know the nights you didn't quit, the mornings you rose anyway, the boundaries you had to fight to keep, the moments you said no to the world so you could say yes to God. That's the power of discipline. It builds a track record in heaven even when earth hasn't caught on yet. And when the time is right, when the door opens, when your name is called, you won't just be ready, you'll be proven. Not by titles, not by applause, but by obedience. You walk into that room carrying the weight of every yes nobody saw, every fast you kept in secret, every prayer you whispered through tears, every time you resisted what was easy to pursue what was eternal, and without needing to announce yourself, your discipline will speak. It will speak peace when chaos tries to enter. It will speak endurance when you're faced with competition. It will speak endurance when trials come. And it will speak identity when the enemy tries to bring up your past. Because discipline doesn't just prepare you, it roots you. It reminds you who you are and where you're going. And the thing about discipline is that it will keep working for you long after motivation leaves, long after the excitement wears off, long after the crowd stops watching, because discipline isn't built on hype. It's built on hope. It's built on habits that align with your higher calling. And those habits, when stacked daily, will form a lifestyle that heaven can trust. Not a lifestyle of perfection, but of persistence. Not a lifestyle of performance, but of purpose. Not a lifestyle of exhaustion, but of alignment. Because when your life is disciplined, it becomes a vessel that God can pour through without it leaking. Growth is not just about you. It feels personal, it looks personal, and yes, it starts personal. But every time you grow, every time you heal, every time you break a cycle that tried to break you, God gets the glory. Because you didn't do it on your own. You didn't wake yourself up. You didn't carry yourself through that storm. You didn't hold yourself together in that season where everything was trying to tear you apart. There was a hand on you. There was grace carrying you. There was mercy covering you when you didn't even know how to ask for it. So when you rise, when you elevate, when you become, don't ever forget who sustained you. Sometimes we get so caught up in becoming better that we start acting like we're doing it all ourselves. We start saying, I worked hard, I focused, I stayed disciplined. And yes, you did all of that. But who gave you the breath to wake up and try again? Who gave you the strength to keep going when your body was tired and your heart was heavy? That wasn't just willpower, that was divine power. That was the Holy Spirit working through your weakness, stretching your capacity, lifting your head when shame tried to keep it down. That's why God gets the glory, not because you didn't work, but because your work would have failed without his hand on it. Your growth is not random, it's not accidental, it's intentional, it's strategic, and it's spiritual. God is using your development as a message to your bloodline that the curse ends with you, a message to hell that what tried to destroy you didn't win, a message to the people around you that healing is possible, a message to your past that it doesn't have the power to write your future. When you grow, it's not just for your benefit, it becomes a testimony. Your growth becomes proof that grace is still active, that purpose is still unfolding, that God is still working through ordinary people to bring extraordinary impact. You never know who's watching your growth. Not everyone will say something, not everyone will clap, not everyone will acknowledge it, but someone's looking at your life thinking, if they can come out of that, maybe I can too. Your obedience becomes someone else's blueprint. Your survival becomes someone else's hope. Your healing becomes someone else's confirmation that God still restores. That's why you don't minimize your growth. And you don't hide it out of fear of looking prideful. You didn't elevate yourself. God lifted you. And when he lifts you, it's not for ego, it's for evidence. The people who saw you when you were broken will see you whole. The ones who watched you at your lowest will watch you walk in your assignment. The ones who wrote you off will have to rewrite their assumptions. But your response won't be revenge. It won't be bitterness. It won't be, look at me now. It'll be worship. It'll be, to God be the glory. Because you know deep down, none of this makes sense without him. You shouldn't have made it. You shouldn't have recovered. You shouldn't have kept your mind, your peace, your hope. But God preserved you. And when you grow from that kind of preservation, it humbles you. There's a glow that can't be explained by skincare or success. It's the glow of someone who's been in the fire and came out without the smell of smoke. It's the glow of someone who was buried in depression, buried in heartbreak, buried in fear, and yet somehow still rose. That glow comes from growth that's been rooted in God, from time spent in prayer when no one saw you, from tears cried on floors that only heaven witnessed, from worship that broke chains you couldn't even name. That glow speaks louder than any caption, louder than any testimony you could type. It's spiritual, it's sacred, it's the reflection of glory. And God doesn't waste your growth. Every step, every stretch, every uncomfortable transition, he uses it. He uses your story to touch people you may never meet. He uses your posture to shift atmospheres. He uses your transformation to create divine disruptions in places that were stuck. He doesn't just let you grow for growth's sake. He lets you grow so he can get glory out of your life so that people won't just see you, they'll see him in you. They'll feel peace when you enter a room. They'll feel challenged to do better. They'll feel inspired to hope again. That's why you had to go through what you went through. That's why you couldn't skip the process. That's why the pruning hurt, because what God was growing in you wasn't for shallow recognition. It was for divine representation. You're not just a person who changed. You're a vessel who carries his presence. And as you continue to grow, your life becomes less about proving and more about pointing. pointing people to the source, to the one who carried you, to the one who sustained you, to the one who made a way when there was no way. It's a holy responsibility to grow and stay grounded, to evolve and stay humble, to reach new levels, but never forget your foundation. Because the moment we start thinking the growth is all us, we start drifting from the grace that empowered it. God will allow you to rise, but he'll also test your heart. Will you give him the glory? Will you remember who kept you when everything was falling apart? Will you use your voice to build altars or to build ego? Will your elevation bring light or just more noise? There's a weight to growing with God. It costs you old mindsets. It costs you comfort. It costs you your excuses. It forces you to confront patterns, release idols, and surrender control. But the reward is divine alignment. The reward is a peace that doesn't come from perfect circumstances, but from knowing you're becoming the person heaven always knew you were. And when that version of you begins to show up, people notice. They can't quite name it, but they feel the shift. You're no longer triggered by what used to control you. You're no longer settling for what used to satisfy you. You're walking with purpose, and purpose always points back to the Creator. So you keep growing, keep stretching, keep rising into who you're called to be. Not for applause, not for followers, not for validation, but because every layer of your growth is a living sermon. Every healed part of you is a billboard of God's faithfulness. Every time you choose growth over comfort, heaven gets louder. Every time you respond differently, love deeper, trust more fully, you give God another opportunity to be glorified through your story. And that is the highest calling. That is the greatest honor, to grow, not just for yourself, but so others can see what grace can do.